boy, I really opened the floodgates on this one. Okay guys, answering the Q&A questions. I'm going to say right now, next time I hit 10,000, it's not going to be a Q&A again. It's going to have to be something else. For some reason, I did not clock in my head that I had twice as many subscribers as the last time I did this. I was probably going to get at least twice as many questions. I am going to try and address all of them in some fashion. There were a lot. If I missed one that you asked, I'm sorry. It wasn't personal. There are probably some that I genuinely missed. Even the ones that I kind of don't intend to answer, I did try and get them down so that I can at least acknowledge them. Now, last time I did this, I did, sort of graphics coming up with what the question is so you could see it and all that. I'm probably not going to do that this time because I am way behind where I wanted to be going into this weekend, and adding that in the edit takes time. So you're probably going to have to watch me read these things off my phone. So I'm actually going to have to break this up into two parts. Well, I don't have to. I'm choosing to break this into two parts. So I was able to break down the questions that I got into four primary categories. Personal questions, general opinion questions, questions about the channel and future plans for it, and questions about Doctor Who. So I'm going to break this into two parts dealing with two sections each. I do plan to put them both up today, but I thought if I do this as one, this is going to be crazy long. Let's break it up a little bit. So this one's going to be on the future plan and channel questions, and then the Doctor Who questions. I'm not going to bounce back and forth. I'm just going to run through the segment. So we're going to start with the future plans and channel questions, and these are not in any particular order. So first up, for Animation Junkie, have you thought to check out the two Ultimate Avengers movies? These are animated films done by Marvel. I don't have them on my docket. I'm not going to say never, but honestly, the Marvel animated stuff never really looked very good to me, and I also don't really like the Ultimates all that much, not from having read, the earlier trades. Do you attend any Comic-Cons or hope to one day do a live panel at a con? This was a question a few people asked in one form or another. I have gone to a couple of cons, but just as an attendee. I've never had a booth. I've never been on a panel. I'd be game to be on a panel as soon as a con asks me, but I've stuck very local. Vermont Comic Con, Boston Comic Con. I might check out Granite Comic Con in New Hampshire this year, but I stay within a fairly tight radius just because I don't have the budget to say go out to San Diego. Congratulations on 20,000 subscribers. Speaking of subscribers, why do you think they subscribe? I mean, what makes your YouTube channel different from the thousands, possibly millions of others? You know what? Your guess is as good as mine. I've been doing this a long time. When I think about it, it's scary how long I've been doing this now. So you're asking me why do people subscribe to me? I don't really have an answer. It's like when people ask me, hey, what advice can you give to a new YouTuber? I'm like, don't ask me that. It took me 5 years to break 1,000 subscribers. I've been surging lately and I don't know why. But if you're asking things that I see get mentioned in comments when people in some way reference why they subscribe to me, two main things come up. One is I do Doctor Who content every week. Seem to be a fair number of people who are appreciative of that and are tuning in mainly for that, and fine with it. And the other thing that's come up lately, especially as I've kind of started to dip into more, I guess, controversial or sort of heavily loaded topics, is people seem to appreciate the even-handedness with which I try and approach these things, because I do have a tendency to, even if I do have a firm point that I'm trying to make, I do usually understand why the other side is arguing what they are, and I do try and acknowledge that. I really try to avoid finger waving. People seem to appreciate that, or at least the people who choose to subscribe to me do. How do you have time to make so many 20-plus minute videos in a week? I don't sleep. No, seriously, at this point, it's just practice. I mentioned already, I've been doing this a while, and Most of these videos, you'll notice, have very few cuts. Some of them, basically, aside from the intro bits and the closing credits, don't have any. I've gotten pretty good at figuring out ahead of time what points I plan to hit, and then just rambling and keeping the thought string going until it all peters out and I run out of ideas. And that means that the edit, which is usually what takes it takes the most time, is pretty quick because I don't have to do a lot of cutting. Any plans on coming to New Zealand at all? Because if you do, you have a fair few fans here who would love to meet you, hint, hint. You know what? If I could afford it, I'd be game for it. I know you started with scripted pieces, but it soon moved into just you doing the reviews. Did this happen organically, or did you no longer like doing the scripted things? What happened to the lady and gentleman you used to film with and used to be on the logo? And when did Paul and Ryan emerge on the scene? Okay, so a couple of questions there. The two folks who were the other primary characters way back when this channel started and started as scripted shorts, that's Nicole and Nathan playing the characters of Kathy and Dave. Nicole moved actually to the Caribbean, of all places, and Nathan is still around, but he is hard to get a hold of because he doesn't really use social media at all anymore, and he rarely answers his text. I've tried to get him on here, like to have him on a round table or something. He's just really hard to wrangle at this point. Basically, the only time I see him anymore is he has a booth at the local farmers market because he's a blacksmith. As far as Ryan and Paul, I met them through the local community theater, and we just started geeking out regularly because we share a lot of the same interests. And eventually I found myself going, this was at a point where I was trying to figure out ways to get more content and more people on the channel, thinking, you know what, we could totally just record some of these conversations basically and just throw that up. And that's pretty much what I did. Would you ever consider doing book reviews? I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't read nearly as much as I used to because I don't have the significant chunks of time to do it. I mean, if I have, a quote-unquote free hour in a day, I can read a couple chapters in a book that I haven't picked up for weeks or a month and might even have to backtrack a chapter or two to remember what the heck is going on. Or I could watch an episode of a TV show, actually see the whole thing, and if it's something that I do reviews on, I can get a piece of content out of it. So book reviews, until there is a significant shift in what eats up my time, then probably not. Although I do plan to do like Why It's Awesomes for some of my favorite book series, but like book reviews as a regular thing, I doubt it. Who wrote the Council of Geeks music? A gentleman by the name of Andrew Frappier. He was the husband of a woman who my daughter's mother went to college with. And I'm not sure if he still is, he was a music teacher, but he composed the theme. And also, if you go back to the scripted shorts, there's music used that's meant to be ambient music in a tournament fighting game. He did that for me too. How many people do you have helping with these videos behind the scenes? Well, at this point, it's really just one as far as behind the scenes. Because, I mean, when I have other collaborators, you see them on the screen. And I've had contributions like, there's the drawn logo and the music. But these were, done once and now I just use them over and over. As far as active behind the scenes, some people have noticed I now have somebody doing my thumbnails who is way better at it than I am. A gentleman by the name of Joel Johnson. And he came to me offering to do them, and it's working out pretty well so far, I think. Have you ever thought about doing Council of Geeks as Vera Wild? You seem to suggest you feel more comfortable presenting that way. I think most of the people who would watch the Q&A already know about this, but just in case, I've mentioned in more than a few videos at this point, I do have a fluid sense of gender, and one of the things that sort of has emerged from that is I do have a completely different YouTube channel called Vera Wild, Wild spelled W-Y-L-D-E, where I do present feminine and talk about issues relating to gender fluidity and cross-dressing. So to address the question, have I ever thought about hosting this channel in the full look that I do as Vera? Short answer, no, because that's a lot of work. Like doing that level of makeup is anywhere from a half hour to an hour, depending on what I decide to do with it. But also, beyond that, I don't have an issue presenting this way. So it's not like I'm aching to present like Vera and I'm holding that back. I'm totally cool with this. In regards to the recent surge in subs, what do you think about why you had that surge as far as a reason might go? See, funny thing, I've gotten better at using my analytics. I can tell you exactly what the most recent, not even most recent, biggest surge I've ever had was the queer baiting video that I did last month in May. So, like, for frame of reference, analytics can tell me the number of people who click the subscribe button from a specific video. And obviously there are people who may still have subscribed to me because of that video, but they did it from the channel page or something else. But it's a pretty good indicator. So, like, for point of reference, the second Channel Awesome video that I did, which was a decent spike, certainly by my standards, that had about 300 people subscribe off that page itself. The queer baiting video had over 2,000. So when I look at the fact that I have surged as much as I have in the last month, I know exactly why that is. Why do you always wear the hat? Your hair is awesome. Yeah, so there we go. You know what? We'll ditch it for the remainder of this. It's a Q&A. You folks can handle it. So the hat was originally something that I started using regularly because there were just days that my hair looked like crap. Like, there was a point at which I didn't know what to do with it. But I was just growing it out while I was twiddling my thumbs trying to figure out what to do. It just started to look like a shaggy mess. And throwing the hat on meant not having to deal with it or worry about how it looked. That started to become a consistent look. And then when I got a more, gender neutral hairstyle and then eventually, grew it out and got it dyed, prior to effectively coming out my last Q&A video back in January, I wasn't sure that this was something I was going to be comfortable presenting as on this channel. At this point, obviously, I don't mind. Though I still use the hat, though, for two reasons. One, I worry that presenting like this in a more, sort of with my more feminine aspects on display can be distracting because, this side of myself is not often relevant. When it is relevant, I'll ditch the hat. You've probably noticed in some of the videos. But there's also a completely logistical end of that too, which is, I shelled out money for the logo and the logo has the hat. So it's kind of become a branding thing at this point, and I don't want to pay to get the logo redesigned. So I don't want to say I'm obligated and now locked into that look. If it starts to bother me, I'll ditch the hat. But yeah, that's why it's still there. Okay, so last thing on this topic before we move on to Doctor Who stuff. And this is just a quick list of basically, will you review things? Because basically there were a lot of people that asked, will you talk about this, any interest in discussing this? And I'm just going to burn through these pretty quick. Sonic the Hedgehog, no. It's not something I have any nostalgia for, and it's not something that I would have a reason to get into now. Could you rank the Harry Potter movies? Maybe, at some point. It's not on my to-do list at the moment, though. The Merlin TV series, never saw it, not planning to. The Lucifer TV series, I saw 3 episodes. I did not care for it, so probably not. The Planet of the Apes series, I'm going to assume that whoever asked this means like the classic Planet of the Apes series, since I do have reviews of at least the second 2 of the reboot franchise. Maybe, because I actually have seen all of those and I do have an affection for that series, but not currently planning to. Anything Scooby-Doo related? Well, I did do the Scooby-Doo and Batman Brave and the Bold team up. Aside from that, probably not. Scooby-Doo also not something that I was ever all that much into. I was a little more into it than into Sonic, because I did actually, watch Scooby-Doo a little bit. But no, probably not. The 80s Legend of Zelda cartoon? Nope. Didn't watch it, don't have an interest. Can you make a video ranking every Star Wars film? Yes, that in fact is on the docket and is going to come out in, I'm not going to say exactly when because I have to keep reshifting the schedule as stuff happens, but in the not so distant future. Peaky Blinders, haven't seen it, no idea if I'll ever talk about that. The Super Mario Brothers movie, maybe, because it's kind of a fascinating oddity, but not currently planned. So now we get into the monstrous amount of Doctor Who related questions. I'm gonna try and pick up the pace on this because there's a lot of these. Out of New Who, what is your favorite regeneration? I think my favorite regeneration so far was Smith to Capaldi, and when I say that I mean the regeneration moment itself, because I actually don't really like Time of the Doctor as an episode very much at all, but I do really like the suddenness of that regeneration. I like Matt Smith's line leading up to it. I do like the Raggedy Man moment that he has with Amy. So I think that's probably it. If you can you do Doctor Who reviews, lists, etc. more often? For my own sanity, probably not. Right now, it is a weekly feature. It is every single Sunday. I don't want to do it any more often than that for a couple reasons. One, it would squeeze out other stuff, and I like talking about a lot of other stuff. But beyond that, I love Doctor Who, and I don't ever want to burn out on it. And I fear that if I did it Doctor Who stuff more frequently, if I did it like twice a week, I'm just really worried that I would start to tire of my favorite thing, and I don't want to do that. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being hell-bent and 10 being the Dr. Dances, what do you rate Love and Monsters? On that scale, a 3. Is there any episode of Doctor Who you wish you hadn't seen? Not really. Like, even the ones I've hated, I haven't been like, man, I wish I hadn't watched that. Even Hellbent, of all things, I'm so glad I saw it because I think it's helpful to see at least once how badly things can get so you can appreciate when they actually work. Do you think Doctor Who could use another 10-year hiatus and then continue canonically from there? I don't think it's necessary for that to happen, but I don't think it would be the worst thing ever. A lot of doctors have a lot of similarities with other doctors. In my opinion, Peter Capaldi a lot of similarities with Tennant. Really? Which previous doctor do you think Jodie Whittaker will be most like? Like at a random guess, I'd say Tom Baker, but I've got nothing to base that off of. With the debut of Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor drawing ever closer, I'm curious as to which actors or actresses you would like to see take on the role in the future. I actually have a long time have wanted Patterson Joseph to get the part. I think he would be awesome. I base that largely off his role as the Marquis de Carabas in Neverwhere. He's amazing in that and failing that, and I know this person would never get cast because they do movies and it would be too expensive, but Tilda Swinton. Unpopular Doctor Who opinion. I don't know. I don't think I think anything that's that excessively controversial. I suppose it seems to be my thoughts on the 10th Doctor, i.e. my belief that he is too human in his behaviors and the fact that he keeps slipping further and further down every time I do a re-rank of the Doctors. That seems to be the one that I get pushback on the most these days. So I know Doctor Who has only done a handful of animated projects, 5 that I can think of off the top of my head, but I was wondering what your thoughts were on those. I've seen 3 of those, and they're fine. I don't ever need to see them again. I might talk about Scream of the Shalka at one point because it's kind of a really fascinating oddity of a project, but yeah, they're just kind of there. You say Heaven Sent might be your favorite Doctor Who episode, so which is your favorite? I really hate answering that because there's a reason I've never done a top 10 Doctor Who episodes of all time. I always break it down into categories, top 10 for each Doctor, top 10 written by a certain writer, etc. But if you're going to pin me to a wall on it, I would say City of Death. What was your opinion of the Matt Smith cameo in Deep Breath? I thought it was fine. I kind of liked it even, although I get why it annoyed some people. Which is your favorite writer or writers, if you feel like naming a few, for Doctor Who, main show and in audio? Well, to date, the ones that I would put on there would be Rob Shearman, Jamie Matheson, Stephen Moffat. Yes, even though he wrote Hellbent, he's also written some stuff that I really love. Robert Holmes, and I suppose we have to put Terry Nation just on a grandfather clause. Do you think overall Doctor Who has done a good job with addressing the LGBTQ community? Yeah, for the most part, I think they have. I think it's been one of the better shows overall in terms of that kind of representation and addressing of things. When you saw the episode The Satan Pit during your honeymoon in London and you stopped on an ood, did you stop on the scene where the Beast was speaking to the Doctor? I've told this story in the past. It was how Doctor Who first really came onto my radar was channel surfing on my honeymoon and seeing an ood and going, oh. No, it wasn't that scene. It was where they're like crawling through the vents to get away from the ood. That was when I first came in on that episode. If you were the showrunner for Doctor Who, how long would you get rid of the Daleks? 2 years. Have them come back on a Christmas special. What's your opinion on the 8th Doctor Adventures with Lucy? Can't tell you because I haven't gotten to them yet. Most underrated Doctor Who episode in your opinion? This is actually hard for me because I don't have all that many that I would call underrated. There are ones that I call overhated, i.e. they're not good, but they're not like as bad as I think a lot of fans tell them. The only one I get really like, really? People hate that one is Let's Kill Hitler. I enjoy it. And again, I'm not like saying it's a misunderstood masterpiece or something, but I see it show up on worst lists, and I always kind of scratch my head at that. Worst Doctor Who episode you've seen? Hellbent. What direction would you like the new Doctor to go in, and how much of a difference do you actually think having a woman will make? Well, if I had my way, it would make as little difference as possible. I want as little emphasis put on as possible. I want as few references to it as possible. I want things to move forward with whatever personality Jodie Whittaker intends to infuse the Doctor with. When there is no Doctor Who content to review, like now, why not do reviews for spin-offs like The Sarah Jane Adventures or Torchwood? Well, if I ever completely catch up on classic Who, I might do that, but the thing is, like I mentioned, I don't want to do more than one Doctor Who related thing a week, unless like news is broken, and then, I'll stick something in the middle of the week. But I would rather get through classic and work on deepening my knowledge of Big Finish before I would care to rewatch either of those shows. If you could choose, who would you pick to play the next Master or Mistress? Eddie Izzard. I'm dead serious. What do you think of cliffhangers happening at the ending of a season finale? I don't hate them, but I also don't love them. I'm just kind of tired of them as a trope. Like, do they really think we're not going to tune in the next series if they don't leave something in a weird, contrived cliffhanger scenario? I don't know. Do you think Doctor Who will be cancelled after Series 11? No, I do not. Which Doctor have you seen the least of? That would be the first Doctor so far. Are there any companions you would like to see return to Doctor Who? Yep, there's two. There's Ace and Wilf. Could the Doctor regenerate as a new form besides a human being or a child? If you think yes, could it work? Well, I think it's possible. I mean, they have a point of reference. Romana's regeneration gives us some wiggle room on that. So you probably could. I think it'd be a real bad idea, though. Least favorite moment from all 12 Doctors. This is liable to be a video topic somewhere down the line, so I'm going to take a rain check on that. What does your daughter think of Doctor Who? Who is her favorite Doctor? She doesn't watch Doctor Who. I've learned the hard way. I cannot impose my fandoms onto her. We've got a bit of overlap. We love some of the same movies, but she does not share my geekdoms, and I have come to terms with that. If we had one of the actors who played the Doctor play the Master instead, which actor do you think could give us an interesting performance you would like to see? This is an interesting question, and I did think about it for a bit. I would go with Peter Capaldi. I think he'd be a very cool Master. Who is your favorite individual Dalek? I just like the big red bellowing leader ones that we tend to get. Which Doctor would you most like to travel with in which Tardis? This is not the same as my favorite to watch, but if I was going to travel with the Doctor, I'd want to go with the 11th Doctor in the 8th Doctor's Tardis. Other than the revival, what shows do you think are the closest descendants of old Doctor Who in terms of style and format? I honestly don't know. Nothing that I watch. What do you think of subscribers who only watch your Doctor Who related videos? Thanks for your patience and sticking around for all the other stuff I put out during the week. If you could write a Doctor Who story with the return of Omega, how would you do it? I don't really know, because I really try to avoid sort of the fanficky thing, even as a mental exercise, because I don't want to lock into how like falling in love with my own idea and then getting upset when something else happens instead. So I don't really have an answer. Do you feel the 13th Doctor's sexuality should be talked about next series? If so, how? No, I don't. And like, because you said sexuality, I'm going to take you at your word, because sexuality is not the same as gender identity. So, like, I'm assuming you mean like the whole question of, well, now that the Doctor's a woman, does that make her a lesbian? And my immediate thought is, who cares? I don't want to see the Doctor getting into a relationship with anybody regardless. And beyond that, if the gender swap thing is not completely atypical on Gallifrey, which it seems to be leaning towards it's not, one would think that they don't really get hung up on those labels in the first place. What do you think it is that the new era of Doctor Who manages to portray and do best compared to the classic era? Because I did kind of rag on New Who a bit when I did my comparison video. Well, there's a few things. I mean, the big thing is the production values. I know part of that's time, but I think even like of the time, this is a higher caliber of the time it's going on than classic Who was for the most part. Music's a heck of a lot better. But if you mean in terms of like the narrative, I actually do appreciate having the 45-minute closed-off episodes, because when they work, they are really wonderful, and I do enjoy really tightly done, complete stories. So we don't always get gold with the 45-minute per show format, but when we do, I really, really enjoy it, and it becomes like it satisfies in an instantaneous gratification kind of way that the original show didn't do. If you could get rid of the overuse of the mystery boxes in Doctor Who, or the use of the same kind of companion over and over again, which would you get rid of? Between those two, I get rid of the mystery boxes, because, you know, as much as I'm sick of the companion template of young, contemporary London attractive female, as long as the character is well written, well performed, has good chemistry with the Doctor, eventually I won't care. Mystery boxes, I'm so sick of at this point. Would you ever want to see Captain Jack Harkness come back? Sure. I know there are plenty of people who are like really dedicated to that idea. They are craving his return. I'm not there, but I'd be happy if he came back. Are you avoiding spoilers for Doctor Who Series 11? If not, then are you going to talk about all the supposed leaks coming in? I'm not going to talk about them because I am avoiding leaks like the friggin' plague! You could pick one Doctor Who companion who could defeat Thanos. Who would it be, and why would it be Ace? See what you did there. Do you prefer the 8th or 2nd Doctor? Apparently this questioner compared those two because they consider them to be the most underrated. Between those two, I'm going to go 2nd. What is your favorite story for each Doctor, classic and modern? I'm not going to explain these, I'm just going to burn through them. First Doctor, Dalek Invasion of Earth. Second Doctor, Tombs of the Cybermen. Third Doctor, The Time Warrior. Fourth Doctor, City of Death. Fifth Doctor, Caves of Androzani. Sixth Doctor, The Holy Terror. That's a Big Finish audio. I haven't found a show story from him that I actually like. Seventh Doctor, Remembrance of the Daleks. Eighth Doctor, Night of the Doctor. Ninth Doctor, The Empty Child two-parter. 10th Doctor, Silence of the Library two-parter. The 11th Doctor, The 11th Hour, and the 12th Doctor, Heaven Sent. And finally, main things you would do if you had complete control of Doctor Who. Okay, I had to write these down because I thought about them, so I have notes. So forgive me on this. And this is the last one. So, or for this this part of the Q&A. Companion from another time. I would prefer from the past, but just not from modern London. I need a break. No more than 3 stories set on Earth per series. You can have your Earth story to establish the companion, but I do not want to keep coming back to this planet over and over and over and over again. Bring in Frobisher for at least 1 story and make him canon in the show. Google him if you don't know what his deal is. I already mentioned no more Daleks for at least 2 years. Bring back Ace for 1 story and a proper send-off. Stay away from Gallifrey. And finally, the Doctor no longer regenerates in Christmas specials. The Doctor will regenerate at the series finale of whatever is their last series. And the Christmas special serves as the first adventure of the new Doctor. That's it for this part of the Q&A. Stick around later today. I'll cover the personal questions and the general opinion stuff.